Hello and welcome to the public TV of Armenia. War in Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh started on 27 of September 2020, and it was largely covered by the independent and international leading world news agencies and media. Over 800 foreign journalists flew to Artsakh to cover the war and the consequent developments, 7 of them injured during the war and during the attacks by Azerbaijan, Turkey and the terrorists. Today I will host Karlos Zurutuza, who is a freelance journalist from Spain and has worked in Artsakh during the 44-day war. Karlos, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
When did you arrive in Nagorno-Karabakh and how long did you stay?
I arrived late. I couldn't make it earlier, so I arrived. I spent the last 10 days of the war. I think it was just 2 days before Lachin was cut. And I stayed until the last journalists on the ground were evacuated in that minivan.
Mm-hmm. In what places have you been in Artsakh during the war?
Well, I had been to Artsakh before several times, and during the war, the last 10 days it was difficult to move around. I remember, of course, we were based in Stepanakert. I was in Martuni and Vank. And also Lachin, Shushi, of course, we would go to Shushi every day until it was no longer possible. And but I would say that movements, those last 10 days were very, very restricted.
Carlos, tell me please, why did you decide to cover especially Artsakh war? Because there were many conflict zones during that time.
Well, I had been to Armenia before and to Artsakh. I think the first time I visited Artsakh was back in 2005. So when the war started, unfortunately, I couldn't make it because I was on the Libyan coast on one of those rescue boats. So I was following the news from that boat, and I literally flew from Palermo, from Sicily to Yerevan. And then directly to Artsakh. That's why I just arrived 10 days before the end of the war, we could say.
You have been covering many war zones, and please share with us your experience. What was the hardest part in Artsakh for you?
Well, I think that the hardest part is that I knew what it was going to be like. When everything started, I had this friend in Armenia, and I told him, look, if they have drones, it's going to be like what we saw in northeast Syria with Turkish troops, Turkish army and jihadist allies bombing the Kurds, the local Kurds. And we saw that in Libya as well. So when it comes to drones, if you don't have the right technology to counterbalance that, it's going to be carnage. So it was sad to hear that they were using this technology. So even before making it to Artsakh, I had a vague idea of what it was all going to be about. And when I was there on the ground, I saw that it was exactly that way. It was exactly what I had seen in Rojava with the Kurds facing the attack by Turkey, by Erdogan and his jihadi allies. Yes.
Azerbaijan and Ilham Aliyev deny they committed war crimes against the civilians and the people in Artsakh, and also international media, and that he involved terrorists during the war. As a journalist who witnessed many atrocities and documented them, what would be your message to them?
Well, we've seen the use of mercenaries, not just in Karabakh. They are, it's unfortunately they are very, very well known in Libya. We've seen them there. We've seen them in Syria. We've seen them being used by regional powers like Turkey against the local people, like the Kurds, as I was mentioning before. My message, I don't think I can get the message. I mean, it's just, you basically paying money for foreign people to slaughter local people. So obviously that should be addressed.
As an experienced journalist who covered many war zones, did you have any chance to transfer your knowledge and experience to the local Armenian journalists?
Well, yes. When I made it to Karabakh, to Artsakh last year, I came across the regular bunch of colleagues from elsewhere, from America, from Canada, from Germany, etc. And I had the feeling that I'm always meeting people who travel from war to war. They know a lot about conflict reporting, but these people in particular knew little about the problem in Artsakh. They didn't have the basic knowledge of the war, you know. So I always have this feeling that we jump from conflict to conflict, but people who should report from this conflict should be the local people. In this case, the Armenians, the people in Artsakh, because they know what's going on. So they just need the tools to convey that story to the outside world. And this is why we run this program with the HEVU in August last month in Goris, with a group of people, of journalists from Karabakh and Armenia, who are very experienced, who obviously know what's going on, but who don't know how to reach international media and eventually how to work within those standards. So one of our goals is to empower local journalists to tell these stories, so they don't have to rely on foreign journalists who often don't know the basics of in this case the conflict in Artsakh.
And my last question, in Baku, Ilham Aliyev opened a sort of so-called trophy park. As a journalist who covered many wars, what do you think about this trophy park?
Well, I guess that's part of propaganda, and then I guess that's part of this narrative, to like very nationalist narrative, to boost the morale of the people and basically to hide other problems. You know, we know that in countries like Azerbaijan or Turkey, wars are also used for the respective governments to hide domestic issues. So I guess that they will try their best to use whatever kind of image or symbol to divert the attention from other problems.
Karlos, thank you very much for your time and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Today I hosted Karlos Zurutuza, a journalist from Spain who covered Artsakh war during last year from September 27 up to 9th of November. This is Public Television of Armenia. Thank you for watching us.